Okay, hello Maya. I am taking a look now at your research report, going to evaluate it, and I do these by video because it's a little easier for me since they're so long, and also I think the students often say they like this because it's kind of like watching over my shoulder as I grade it. So let me know if you want to. You can always give feedback on the video evaluation. So here we go. Your page numbering is up there. We're supposed to be heading and everything, title, all that looks great. So let's get right into the introduction here. The regulation of food ingredients. Okay, so your introduction is not bad, but you don't end with the right thesis, with a solid thesis statement. So here at the end, you should just add another sentence that would be your actual thesis statement. And you'll want to go back and take a look at the materials, maybe there's the sample in week 9, or the materials I think that were about how to do the thesis statement, which I think were either in week 9 or week 10 materials. But remember, it should start with something like this report seeks to blah blah blah, right? So that's what I'm looking for here is your last sentence in the introduction. So you'll need to fix that. Okay, moving on. Literature review. Thank you for the bold subtitles. Some students aren't doing that, so that's good that you did that. Caught on to that. To better understand this issue, it helps to look at the different types of. Okay, probably ought to have a comma here. Usually the word which is preceded by a comma when it's used like this in a sentence. Or you could just change the word which to that. T-H-A-T. Either way, however you want to do it. Okay, so this is from a source, Food Fillers 101. So once you get to the literature review, maybe not so much in something like this because it's not like essential information, because it's not like the essential argument that you're making. You probably could get away with doing this the way you've done it here. But when you get down to the more, like here's what I'm looking for. When you get down to the more important points that you're making, you want to make sure that you actually properly cite and integrate your sources. Remember, the video integrating sources is available in the, I believe it's in the supplementary videos module if you need to refer to it. But this looks much better. According to Harvard's nutrition source, these foods are higher in sugar, sodium, and fat, processed food. Okay, so when you are, let's see, let me take a quick look at your works cited page. So you'll need to do some work on your works cited page here to get the formatting to look correct as far as what it should look like per the sample. So you'll definitely need to fix some of that stuff. So these, I'm assuming these did not have authors, and that's okay. If you don't have authors, then you start with the title. That's exactly right. So good. Okay, good. So yeah, that's good. You've done that correctly. Uh, but like this one here, what you want to do since you have an actual author is you want to introduce that author here in the signal phrase. So you would use his or her full name and a qualifier, something to let your audience know why Monteiro is somebody worth listening to. Could be their job title, where they work, their education, whatever. But you want to do something like that. Again, check the sample. It'll show you how that kind of stuff should look. Also, the integrating source video will help you with that kind of stuff. So just make sure you do that for all the rest of the sources. Fix them all. And also make sure that as you're fixing things here, you highlight what you fixed. So every little thing that you fixed, you need to highlight it, and then put a note over here, an annotation telling me what you fixed. Okay, so you want to fix those things like that. Now, when you put the author's name in the signal phrase, you do not need it here. Okay, so that's something to remember too. If you create a signal phrase here that actually introduces the authors by their names, then in here you just have the page or paragraph number. But for these up here, where you don't have an author, you still, and even if you did have an author in here, you need to have in here the page numbering. Okay, so the page or paragraph numbers. If you don't have page numbering, then use a paragraph number. And the way that works, of course, is shown in that sample and in the video. Okay, so check those things out to make sure you're doing these correctly before you resubmit it to me. Okay. Other than that, things are looking pretty decent. Now you don't want to use these dates because that's APA. So you'll just want to delete these years in parentheses and just put the parentheses at the end of each source material citation. Everywhere you cite a source has to have a parenthetical at the end like this, but it has to have the page number in it as well. Now when you're using the title, it should still be the same way in the same format. And for titles, you actually only need the first word of the title, unless the first word is a, an, or the. So that's really all you need to have in there. It's just those words, and then the page number, whatever that might be, right? Or paragraph number. You do that a little differently, but you can see that in the video how to do that right. Okay, let's see. So otherwise, everything is looking pretty good as far as the content's concerned. Just fix those citations. Now this whole thing, I'm assuming, is your discussion of the gap. Yeah. So really all that you need to do put in bold is the word gap. All the rest of it, you can take that bold out. Just technically speaking, it shouldn't be anything in bold, but I ask you to put the words in bold just so I can easily spot them. So just make this the only word that's in bold, is the word gap or weakness or whatever word you use throughout the paper. Okay. Again, remove the year, fix the citation. All right, research methods. So this is good. Other than the citation stuff that I mentioned, this is overall the lit review is good. Research methods. Okay, now you do not want to refer to yourself in here, so you want to change the wording so you don't use I, me, or my. And the way to do that is to use, the best way to do that in a report is to use passive voice. So instead of saying I started by, you could just simply say something like, for this project, comma, information was collected from reliable and research-based sources, blah, blah, blah. So that way you're making it about what the research did instead of what you did. So you want to make sure you take yourself out of the paper altogether. No I, me, or my. Okay. Otherwise, your content here, again, is looking good. Here you talk about a source you chose not to use because, and presumably it was biased. Okay, so good. So you do talk about that. I have no problem at all with that. That's good. It's good to let your audience know that there were sources you discovered that weren't good enough. It tells them that you were diligent, right? So that's a good idea. But you should talk a little bit about this, maybe some of the criteria you used to judge the other sources that did pass. You should probably talk a little bit more about that. Okay, primary research. Again, take yourself out of it. A survey was sent to group chats and blah, 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 right? Make it pass, take yourself out of it is what I'm getting at. Okay. All right, good. Now here you have your challenge. Again, that's the only thing you need to put in bold is that word challenge. But otherwise, great job. You're doing great so far with the content overall. Results. Okay, good. Get your figures here. Now, I'm assuming you created these, and that's fine, but underneath here with the figure, you still need to have like a descriptor, like a brief description of what this is talking about or what this is showing. And then you should have the word source with a capital S after that descriptor. You should have with the word source and a colon, and then you can put something like author, which would mean it was your source that you created or created by author. Anything, something like that's fine. Okay. All right. Now you don't really have much in here in the way of discussion. It would probably be a good idea to have a discussion section, a separate discussion section, or integrate the discussion within here where you talk about what these things reveal. Right? Talk about what all this means, what you want your audience to get out of all this results that you've written here. So you might want to do that in its own paragraph, or just simply integrate it somehow into the results. If you integrate it within the results, then add to here, make it like something like that, discussion, right? But if you give it its own paragraph, then you would just title it discussion. Okay, conclusion. Conclusion is a little bit long. You could probably make it about half that long and be better off. Conclusion should simply restate the main point. Like your first sentence should be restating the main point and telling the audience why everybody should care about the issue, and then ending with a final point that kind of drives home your main point. So this right here would be more along the lines of your conclusion, or at least how long it should be. So you probably can take some of this stuff out of here. Now your page numbering obviously is not correct here because it's not numbering for you, which tells me that you probably just went up in here and you double clicked in here and you just typed Leone1. You can't do that. You have to actually use the page numbering tool here, which you choose top of page. You just highlight that, and then it'll drop this arrow down. You pick number 3, and then you put your last name in front of that number when it pops up in there, and then double click out here anywhere, and then it will automatically number your pages for you. So you need to fix that so they don't all say the same page number. Okay. Lastly, your works cited page, as I already mentioned before, needs some formatting issues. There's too much spacing here between some parts. There shouldn't be this much spacing over here from the end of a line to the all the way over to the right margin. That should be filled in with part of this. Let's see what else. It seems like there's maybe something missing here in the way of maybe page numbers or something. It just feels like it's not quite full enough or long enough. So make sure that you are correctly completing these correctly. Okay. When this happens like this here, you have to try to fill this gap in with some of this information. And usually the easiest way to do that is just to put your cursor here and hit the space bar. Now, you'll notice it didn't work that time, so I'll move it over a little bit. Try again. Move it over some more. Eventually, if it doesn't, see, that's not working. And the reason why it's not working is because of the formatting things that you've done here. So you'll probably have to actually redo this whole entry. You'll have to rewrite it in here and then do what I just did, if it goes too far. So make sure that you have, it looks like they are GHL, so it looks like they're in, they're in alphabetical order, so that's great. You want to get rid of this excess spacing, make it all double spaced, and make sure that you don't have all this character spacing over here on the right that's empty. Okay? But now, as I mentioned already, you got to make sure you highlight and annotate everything that you fix on here, and I highly suggest that you resubmit it to me as soon as you can so that I can give you more feedback, and that way we can make sure your paper ends up being great for the final project, for the final portfolio. Okay, so fix that, and if there's any questions, let me know.